Just I will try to share my experience and feelings on this topic of uh, industrial automation and process automation and control, the scopes and challenges. I will first, okay, I will first go to my slides then. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. So my topic is process automation and control, scopes and challenges. Basically, you must have, for last few days, you must have gone through different lectures, and very inspiring lectures, I guess, and particularly different aspects and advances of modern controls theories like this. I'd rather go to a slightly different topic uh, to explore on the issues that, okay, we have learned so many control strategies, so many mathematics, so many other things there, but ultimately where they would be used. Primarily, they would be used in some uh, different, what we call it, automation and manufacturing process, as well as in the process control. Yeah. So suppose it could be, these control strategies could be used for automatic production of cars or aeroplanes or many vehicles there. It could be also uh, control production, on the control production of steel making industries, petroleum industries, food processing industries, and etc. there. So I will try to give a brief idea. Basically, sometimes we study about only the mathematical aspects and the challenges of these control systems there, but but ignoring the where they would be used, how they would be used, and also what are their challenges are like. So this is my topic, and primarily what we will be talking is that on industrial, a brief idea about industrial automation and control. And second thing, automation and control in food processing industry. Just for a process, I for taking up, I have taken an example. Where take some example on a food processing industries where these things can be implemented, and then what are the control, where they could be implemented, and why they should be used, and also the different challenges there. So to start, before I starting, I will just request you uh, to interrupt me whenever you have got some confusion. uh, so you are free to ask me questions at any point of time, and obviously at the end of this I would be giving some time where we will be discussing on these topics there. Just a minute. Okay. So if we go for this one, this is a automation. What is automation? Basically, the use of automation, basically use of automatic devices in industrial production. So there are so many automatic devices, or so their uses in industrial production. And second thing, the what is control? Control is the method for improving the quality of the product. So automation and control, if we put it in this way, that automation is that use of automatic devices, and control is that improving the quality of the product. So this automation was derived from the word automaton, meaning that self-acting machine. Basically, it is obvious that is a self-acting machine, which is called an automation. So it is the set of technologies that result in operation of machines and systems without significant human intervention and achieves performance superior to manual operation. I think I don't need to explain further, these are obvious. And the improved is that advantages are improved throughput, that is a improved quality, reduced cycle time, and less human intervention. So basically less human intervention, these are the advantages of automation. So first initially I will speak about, introduce this automation and how the structure of automation, and then go for the examples of the process control. So types of production systems. If we look at it, there are several types of production systems. One is called continuous flow process. These are manufactured products, this continuous production. Volume of production is high in quantity, but the production variation is less. Like this oil in refineries, steel plants, cement plants. So basically a good amount of production takes place, but the variations, say suppose the quality of steel only we have, or quality of oil, or they only we have one or two variations there. So basically it's a high production but less variation. Another one is a mass manufacturing of discrete products. So if you look at it, oil or steel or cement, these are all continuous production. But this case, the products are discrete objects and manufactured in large volumes. And here also production variations are limited. For example, automobiles. So in an automobile factory, maybe we are manufacturing one or two more types of models, but they are throughout the day or a year there, they produce the same type of cars, or like this, or only one or two variations of cars are like this. So this is, but these are discrete products because the cars are not can be discretely quantified like this. Next is a batch production. The products can be either discrete objects or continuous, but variation is large. Same set of equipment used to manufacture all product types. For example, plastic molding, pharmaceuticals, printing, etc. So suppose take an example of pharmaceuticals. That means we may be manufacturing several medicines or like this from the same infrastructure, but from time to time we may have to change like this. So maybe several variations. So variation is larger. We can have different medicines, or similarly for the plastic molding or the printing, we can do it like this. Next is a job shop production. The product is specially designed in small quantities, discrete properties, and sophisticated. For example, prototyping, machine tools. If you have an idea about machine tools, so basically in lathe machines and etc., or the numerical machines are like this. We have a very precise type of design which you want to manufacture, and so they are in small quantities, but the very sophisticated type of production. Apart from that, the types of automations, we can put it in a different way. So one is that we can give it a fixed automation, high volume of production, fixed and repetitive operation, like distillation process, paint shop, etc. Next is a programmable automation, typically used in batch process. So basically, I want to produce one batch of thing of a particular different specifications, in another batch in a different specification. So with a little bit of changes, we can produce different types of things here. Next is a flexible automation for flexible manufacturing systems like multi-purpose computerized numerical control machines or like this, where we have very specific requirement. And obviously integrated automation, which is completely automated manufacturing plants there. So the building blocks of industrial automations are, what are they? Sensors, maybe temperature, pressure, flow, level, etc. Actuators. Are basically opposite of sensor. Sensor is that the input is some non-electrical quantity, output is some electrical quantity. Whereas in actuator, we have input is the electrical quantity, but output is a non-electrical quantity, maybe some relays or some sort of pneumatic positioners or hydraulic positioners or even stepper motor. They can be called as actuators. And this control could be continuous process control or sequential and logic control. So this is a sequential operation of one control, then next step in another control, or like this. And obviously there is some other way, that is we will call it supervisory control, which is known as SCADA, DCS, distributed control systems, etc. And obviously there are others. So basically there is some structure there. We'll show it in the next slides. That okay, these are all the plant level control and automation, but also there are some managerial work also there. That is the production control and planning. Then obviously computer communication and networking and internet. So these are all basic building blocks of an industrial automation system here. So how they look like? So they can be explained and put it in terms of, illustrated in a form of an automation pyramid. So the level 0 is called the lowest level. That's a sensors and actuators. In between and below this, these are actually the process, the machines, and etc. Next is that the automatic control. We may require some control of flow rate, control of temperature, control of pressures. So different, if we look at it, if we could look at a power plant or a steel plant, there are several controls there, and there are individual controls. And this is a automatic control. There are so many control loops are there, they call it, and they fall under level 1 control. And next one is called the supervisory control. This will be explained like this there. So suppose there is some production is going on. So we need to have some supervisor which will look after whether everything is going on or not, okay or not. Okay, in case of any trouble, identify the trouble and troubleshoot that one. And also takes instructions from its top management. Okay, what should be the next step of production? What would be your production target, and etc. And try to implement it. So this is called the product supervisory control. Above that, there is some production control. That is basically a managerial level like this there, which looks after the whole plant like this there, and they just they have got the planning of this production target for this month or that month and like this there, and also material procurement, and all of them we require at this level of product. And above that, that is the highest level, that is an enterprise. So there may be the chief of your organization or like this, which may be who may be at a remote place there. That is called the enterprise, which looks after several plants or like this there, and the coordination and also marketing and many other aspects like this. So the thing is that if we look at it, this is the with the pyramid. Pyramid means at the base there are a number of sensors and actuators. Then the automatic control, the number of automatic control loops are also large, but definitely less than number of sensors and actuators. So this way it just looks like a pyramid, and what we will get is that there is always some information transfer from the bottom to top, as well as from the top to bottom. So the primarily the in supervisory control is the midpoint overall. Afterwards, it is the industrial IT, that is the information technology. And the thing is that the transfer of data is there, takes place from bottom to up, top, as well as top to bottom. But if we look at it, the responsibility of individual elements is less at the bottom, but as you go up, the responsibility is more, while the process data transfer, the speed is more on this case from the top, and it decreases. No, sorry, the speed is low on the top and it increases at this one, because the sensors and actuators and automatic control, they have to be work very fast within few seconds or like this. But this enterprise or this production control, they target to plan and control it over the daily production or weekly production or the monthly production. So they have got the more responsibility. The speed of data transfer, unlike this, they are less there, unlike this there. So a supervisory control, what are the tips? So you must have seen that the supervisory control is the middle level of this one, which connects the plant level works and where's that the link between the top management here. So what are the supervisory control? Typical tasks are set point computations and setting of different control loops. So what would be the set point, set temperature, set A, and they target it, and also what would be the set production level or like this for today or right now, we'll have to do it. And also performance monitoring and diagnostics, whether everything is working, or the parameters are to the satisfactory, whether if not, what is the could be the problem, is there any fault in this one, try to find out, and also go for the what we can say, so go for the what are the alternative ways or changes of the plan or like this immediately what we do it. Similarly, to start up or shut down a plant, what are the steps to be followed, whether that steps are, it has to supervise that all the steps are being controlled and done it in proper manner. And in case of emergency, what is to be done, and these are the decide. So like this. And apart from that, any controller, you need some tuning, the configuration, and like this, they also, it is the tuning, auto tuning of the controllers and etc. These are also work of the tasks of the supervisory control. And the operator interface, obviously, all the things we do it, but also we need to have a proper display of what are the things, whether all the parameters about the parameters, the state of health of all the things there. So often we require graphical interfaces, okay, whether all the things are working for the supervisory operation. And also in case some requirement is there, from auto mode we switch to the manual mode. So the manual supervision and also intervention. These are the things at the plant level, it has to be done there. While the production control, the operations are process scheduling for optimal resource utilization, maintenance management, okay, when do you have the maintenance of these machines, what is the scheduling, inventory management, Okay, do we have the raw materials and the stores and all the things there? And obviously the quality control. Check the quality of the products. In case of any problem, we just identify and also control the things. So though all of them come into the basically ambit of the control systems, definitely. Next, another for one good important system which is called a for this which is used or for this supervisory control is called SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition. So it is not only the control, the data acquisition is also a big part of it. It's storage of all the data and also transfer the data to the higher apps are like this. So its functions are data acquisitions, network data communications. As I told, this could be at different places. So network data communications, data presentations. How would you nicely present it? That in a graphical manner or like this. That is called HMI, human machine interface, and obviously the control and coordination. So the SCADA components, basically, these are all involved in the SCADA, basically that system there. The sensors and obviously the actuators also, the analog and digital. There are remote terminal units that is called basically at the remote. I will give you an example of this one afterwards. Small units deployed in the field at specified locations in a distributed manner for transmission or receiving data. Next is the SCADA master unit, control processor of SCADA systems and human interface. And obviously we have a computer network to Wi-Fi or wired or like this. But this remote terminal unit that will require special attention. In fact, the SCADA is not only used for typical in production, industrial production systems, but they are also used very much in railways and refineries and etc. So the refineries, because we have a big pipeline supplying oil there, to detect so long supply pipelines there may be leaks. To detect pipeline leaks at remote locations, so these things are being done by RTUs, sending information to generate alert to suggest the follow-up actions. Then power utilities, monitoring current voltage level at different locations, continuous metering of power, load and fault management. So if you go to any power stations, substations, you will get a SCADA unit there. Similarly, for railways also, the tracking and locating trains, because how do you get the information about the railways in our mobile or like this, the trains particularly? Because all of them are fitted with GPS and there is a SCADA unit there which monitors all of them, tracking of location of the trains, automatic traffic signal control, controlling of railway crossing gates. These are all being done automatically. And this one is being done basically the supervisory control. They instruct that, okay, now open the gate, close the gate, and all of the things there. And this is the thing. And obviously, in intelligent building also, nowadays, big intelligent buildings are there where we have so many energy management. We try to see that the fans or lights are on depending upon how many people are inside, what is the electrical load, and etc. So these are the typical SCADA applications. So I will not go much further of it, but I possibly, just 1 minute, try to give you a structure of automation and what are the basic building blocks of automation. And then we will take up a typical example of food processing industry and see what are the scopes for process control. Process control, you know the term, that is what are the parameters to be controlled in the process and etc. And this will be our next topic. So our next topic would be automation and control in food industries, basically food processing industries. Is there any question right now? Is there any question, or I should proceed?
So any questions, participants at this stage?
No question, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I will go for this, that take up an example of food processing industries, because nowadays a lot of food processing industries are there. A lot of junk foods and those things packaged nicely, they are produced, and also the processed foods are also there. So there are a lot of starting from the manufacturing up to the packaging. So a lot of automation and control there. We will try to identify and also see what are the types of controls we want to use there, and what are the, where you can basically, at what locations and what points you can improvise newer control algorithms and improvement of performance there. So the scope for this food processing industries, basically we will have a drying process, separation process, pasteurization and sterilization process, fermentation process, industrial cooking, food packaging, and finishing. These are the primary. If we just if we look into any food processing unit or like this, you will primarily see these are the units of this one there. We will try to explain it to that area. The first of all, the role of automation in food processing. Why do we need automation? Because earlier also we used to have the potato chips also that we used to sell, and also the those things were there. Automation there, that is the elimination of extremely repetitive tasks. Basically, by human there, that using the machine we can use it, do it repeatedly, and extremely repetitive work can be avoided. And if we naturally go for that one, we can have a better quality control to meet the consumer satisfaction, because you do it through machines and etc. The quality control, naturally it will be a much better one, and the consumer satisfaction means we can have a better packaging and all the other things there. And obviously detection of foreign and contaminated materials in food. We may, while you do the processing and the packaging, there may be a foreign materials, maybe contamination there. Identify them, separate them. These are also to be done. All these things should be automated machines there. So the scope for automation and control there is actually primarily the instrumentation, that is the different sensors to measure different parameters there. Then it is a sequential control. I will come to the sequential control afterwards, but food processing are like this. We go for we make the production in several stages sequentially. Say suppose one is the drying, next step is fermenting, next step is the packaging, and all other things one by one after another we have to do. In the same way, say suppose once we manufacture a car, so one after this is done in a production line, one after another some parts are added. Similarly, it is that which is called a sequential control. Here we require those sort of production. Apart from that, the continuous control, that if it is a drying process, we want to maintain the there, what is the moisture content, what is the temperature, and all these things to be done, maintained properly. And obviously supervisory control, is very important. At every level, we need to have a supervision, and this one also data acquisition and also transfer of the data. Right? And obviously, this data communication is a very important thing, that all the data should be transferred and they should be stored at possible all places, and so that for further record as well as the fault diagnosis and all that things. So these data communications are also basically essential in automation and control systems. So this instrumentation in food processing industries, we will find it. It contains of the different process, that means control of different process. Suppose a temperature control, pressure control, level control, weight, humidity, etc. So different types of process we can have it, and basically the instrumentation will be different for these things here. For the analysis, basically temperature, for that one we require a temperature measurement, pressure measurement, level measurement, weight measurement, etc. For analysis of this quality of this area there, we require to measure pH, conductivity. We may have several biosensors like dissolved oxygen sensor, or like this there, the color. Some of them may be some inferential measurement. That means which is not done by only a single sensor, by taking some inference from outputs of readings from several sensors like taste, odor, aroma, crispness. So we don't have any taste sensors or like this there, or some order. Say suppose a tea processing industry, what is the order of the tea or the taste of the tea, which is a combination of several sensors there, from which we can have a rough idea about this sensor there. Apart from that, we have the machine vision, that is the shape, packaging, barcode, and many other things here. So the instrumentation is everywhere, and for different purposes we use different type of sensors. But you can see that this inferential and machine visions are more sophisticated instrumentation, and they require the use of microcontrollers or computers like this there for doing this inferential decision, taking some inferential readings there. And for, as I told, this continuous control, so suppose, as I told, any process, say suppose a drying process, fermentation process, it is a continuously, it should go like this there. So there is a heating process. So what we require, some continuous control. So primarily where we apply the control there, what we say is that, and mostly I understand that whatever the things been taught, discussed in this short-term course, were primarily on feedback control, because feedback control is the backbone of any control systems there. So how good we can have a controller, how can we improve a control systems on performance like this? But we will find which are not, there are other control schemes which are not mentioned also, but very much in use in control. They call the feed-forward control, ratio control, cascade control, adaptive control, etc. We will see that because often we will find that the feedback control is not totally, fully efficient. Is not sufficient to have the product quality and like this there. So we need to have more sophistications in the control schemes. You may be knowing that one, but I will be touching upon those things there like this there. And apart from that, we have the different types of control. Two types of controls are there. What is a model-free control and another is model-based control. Model-free means that we don't require any mathematical model of the plant. So, but some rough idea of what is there, how it works, and etc. But I don't require any mathematical model of this one. But another one is that model-based control, that where we need a model of the mathematical model of the control plant are like this. Often we do it, we linearize the plant model and apply the sophisticated control schemes for there. So the control has also gone through a big evolution. So different types of controls are there. So I am just, maybe you may be knowing, but I will be giving you an introduction of all the things there. So first of all, as I told, the feedback control, as I told, whatever we have it, we'll discuss about with reference to an food processing industry there. An important process of this one food processing industry is basically drying process. That means removal of moisture in this one there. So basically, if we look at it, any control systems block diagram, there is a set point, there is a controller. Often we have it PID controller. I am just telling it, but there could be other controllers there. So that gives you some control signal. That goes to some actuator. Actuator means maybe some valve operations, increasing or decreasing some flow rate or like this there, or maybe the damper opening or closing of any damper or like this there. And then the process, which is basically the drying process there. And in the model there, we often say that this is a disturbance. I will come back to explain to what are the individual one there in terms of a physical drying process. And this MC is called the set point. It's a manipulating manipulating variable and manipulating controlled output there. So this is a set point manipulating control output. What will be the temperature? Say suppose the temperature or the drying process, will come to it afterwards, and that I try to finally measure. And in this case, basically here is a moist and it compares with the set point, and the error is fed to the controller line. So I will try to explain it in terms of a physical drying process. We are more accustomed to this block diagram, but how to relate it with the actual system there. For this, I have shown a basic drying process there. Maybe some wheat or some maybe some flour and all other things may be there. So basically, there is a air is coming. This is pre-filtered, that is to filter the air so that the contaminations doesn't come in, to filter out the contaminations and the darts and etc. Then there is a blower as well as a heater there, which blows it like this, and a hot air is being put there. And there is some HEPA filter, okay, some type of further filter atomizer or like this. So first of all, this, so the atomizer is there. Some other filter is also there. Finally, a hot air is being put into there, and this is a product feed, maybe wheat or like this is coming to. So this is a sprayed air dryer here, where hot air comes over and mixes with the basic product feed here, and after that it goes to a cyclone. So basically it it creates some sort of cyclonic type of movement there. So the moisture with this hot air and like this, moisture gets out of this basic feed there, and ultimately the air passes over here, and then it gets trapped. Those other darts and other things, solid particle gets trapped, and the final air goes like this, and ultimately the product is cooled, and this is the product output. So it could be any type of processing, food processing industry. I am just showing it like that. So in this process, now the question is that I want to have a control the moisture content of this final product output. So the point is that what is our input, what is disturbance, what is controlling value variable, manipulating variable, etc. Let us try to have a look there. So the control variable is basically the moisture control. Okay, we want to control the moisture content finally, and there is a set point there. Then the manipulating variable. What are the manipulating variable? What, by which way we can control the moisture? One, we can say, suppose one way is that I increase the air flow rate. Another way is that I increase or control the temperature of the air, hot air, like this. So depending upon the process, we can have it air temperature or air flow rate, or at some times if it is through a steam, or sometimes it is a steam temperature, or the discharge rate. How do you take out the feed or like this, and this is a discharge rate. So these are the any one or two I can use for this manipulation of this one, where the controller gives you that, okay, the this is the temperature we should have it, and for that one this should be the actuator position, or like this there. So the next important thing is that we have shown it a disturbance. But what do you mean by disturbance? Definitely disturbance is in variable or variables which also affect the performance of the manipulated final manipulated variable. So basically, but they are not being controlled. So what are the things we can see our here in this way? Say suppose I want to control only the temperature of the air there. What are the disturbances which could affect the moisture content at the output? So here we will find it could be the air humidity. Initially the air may contain some air moisture, or air temperature. Initial air may be hot or cold, or the feed moisture, or the feed rate, or in some cases the fuel pressure, where we have used some fuels and etc., or a combination of. So what I wanted to say is that in this case, if I control the air flow rate, then definitely the air temperature inlet, that will be affecting this moisture content, final moisture content here. Similarly, the feed moisture will also be affected there. So these are called the disturbances, and basically our feedback control is aimed at to that one, that the effect, it would be the manipulating variable should be, I mean the final output, in this case the moisture content, should be as close as the set point, but the disturbance attenuations or the disturbance should not affect the performance. This is a very important or issue there for any feedback control systems, or final, if we go for the sophisticated, the robust control systems also, is that a robust control system should not be affected by the parameter variation as well as the disturbances. So we call them the disturbance attenuation. We should have it to a good extent. But I am not going into detail. If I get time, I can go at those aspects of this one. That robust control, but I will go for the controllers there. So this is a controller there, though I have shown it a PID controller, but it, as I told, it could be many other controllers. Basically, ultimately, what are the different controls we have already discussed in the other by other speakers also. Mostly, what controller you should have it, how can you have a better control in this way. So in that case, but more than 90%, 5% of industrial controllers are of PID type here, because it's primarily, it is PID controller is a model free. It does not require a plant model there, and so basically they are model free and they are robust, and apart from that, zero steady state error due to the integral action, and scope for providing additional damping due to the derivative action, and obviously the proportional control. So basically the proportional integral derivative control is basically the block control transfer function is given as Cs is equal to Kp plus 1 by tau Is and tau ds. And among also the PID controllers, I would say that the derivative action is not so frequently used because of the derivative action has got a property of amplifying the high frequency noise, and that's why whenever possible it is better to avoid the derivative action also. So the classical PID controllers are, without requiring any mathematical model of the process, we can have a PID controller, and basically you must have been knowing that one, the tuning of PID controller, which is known as Ziegler-Nichols method, which is actually, it is way back, 70 years back it was developed, when the controllers, well, the control schemes were non-electrical through pneumatic control, and like this we had. That time they were proposed, but still for 70 years with the modern electronics and all electrical type of control schemes here, still the Ziegler-Nichols method is found to be very popular and among this one. So if I say this PID controller is a model-free control, the another one is a model-based control that requires, if we have a better controller or control, if we have a better knowledge, prior knowledge about the mathematical model of this one, it is possible to improve the quality of the control also. And also PID controllers are mostly single input, single output scheme, but nowadays often we require multiple input, multiple output schemes, and like this. For those cases, model-based controls are more useful. So the tuning of controllers, as I told, that I'll just skip, but only thing I'll just those who are not very familiar, I will use one slide or two slides to explain the tuning controller. Tuning controller means what would be the value of Kp, tau I and tau ds for this process, so that it will give you the best performance in the way that zero steady state error as well as the less overshoot and good disturbance at rejections and etc. So for that one, since it is not a model based one, so we require, based on the experimentation, that is called the classical method, that is Ziegler-Nichols method, that was developed in 1945 or something like this. These are the, still now they are in use. There are two types. One was open loop type or reaction curve technique. Another is closed loop type or continuous cycling method. Another type also, as I told, that sometimes nowadays PID controllers are also the tuning of this one, or what are the should be the best values of P, I, and D. They can be done through a model based on like this, and often you must have seen that genetic algorithms and many other sophisticated methods have been used for tuning of this controller. Primarily, the reaction curve technique is basically this is your controller, actuator, plant, and feedback. I break this loop, I give an input step here, m dashed, and measure the output here with 0 set point here. Then we will find that it is normally a process is taken as a overdamped systems. There would be a time lag there, and this will be behaving like this. So if I give a step input, depending upon the, if we record this one, what is the value of K, what is the value of L, and these are the B and N. From this one, we can, there are certain basically ad hoc rules. Mind it, there is no mathematics or A there. These are Ziegler and Nichols suggested and proposed these values. What should be the value of Kp, Ki, and Kd based on their experience, and these are the parameters they had chosen it. I have shown it for P control, but I and D other I have not shown it. Another one is the continuous cycle type technique, where you say that you close it and operate the controller in P mode and increase the gain such that it becomes almost on the verge of instability. That means a continuously cycling method. So let it be like this there. And at that time, what is the Kp value? You note it down. That is the Kp max. And then for that one, corresponding this one, actually, if you want to go for Kp value in P control only, so you make it half of that value. And similarly, I and D actions are there. Anyway, there are more sophisticated techniques are available, but still then Ziegler-Nichols method are still very widely used, and also there are what we call it auto tuning and etc. newer features have been taken into account, have been incorporated. But apart from that, there are, so similarly the digital PID controller, these things can be approximated as a digital mark A there, and if we do it, you say that UK is equal to, in this way, EK, and then this integration I give it here, and this differentiation I write it here, and UK minus 1 is like this there. And what we normally, this is called a position algorithm. What we normally done it, we just go for the increment of input at each step, or that is the delta UK, what is the difference between them. And if we subtract this from the, I mean, the second one from the first one, we get it nicely, some expression which contains only the K and K minus 1 and only 3 values of these things to be stored, and Q0, Q1 and like this, and they are from that one we just implement it, because nowadays all of them are using computer ADR, so in discrete time control, and these are the discrete time PID controller basic techniques there. So the advantage of velocity algorithm is that they are recursive type, need only to store previous 3 values, and second thing is no integration wind up and bumpless transfers. What are they? Integration wind up and bumpless transfer. I tell you, this PID controller, while you try to implement, these are that it has got 2 difficulties while you transfer it from auto to manual mode, or there is a sudden change in the set point. There is a possibility of instability or big jump in the change in the there, instability of the output. So that is called, the one is integration wind up, one is bumpless transfer. These are, if we employ this velocity algorithm, these 2 things can be avoided. Let me also first introduce what is meant by these two things, integration wind-up and bumpless transfer. What is integration wind-up? If there is a certain large change on set point, the error will be large because the set point has changed, but the output is small. I mean, it is not changed. And the integrator output in a PI controller will build up, it will increase, because if we integrate any error, it will build up with time. As a result, the controller output may exceed the saturation limit of the actuator. This wind up, unless prevented, will cause continuous oscillation in the process. This is a big problem in the practical implementation of this one. So this will have to be taken care, and which can be taken up by this velocity algorithm. But further, if you want to see, you can read any process control book. Another is the bumpless transfer. When a controller is switched from manual mode to auto mode, there may be also a sudden change in output of the controller, giving rise in a sudden jerk in the process operation, and special precaution are to be taken for bumpless transfer. That means there is no jump or bump from the manual to auto mode transfer, because often we require to operate it in manual mode, then transfer to auto mode. This transfer often causes a big jerk in the output. Apart from that, we have a model-based control, where we have it, which is normally got a predictive control. We have an air temperature, we have a moisture control, and we have a model of the process. So what we do is that this is the input here, and this is the controller output. So we predict that if we happen to this one, then what is going to be the output, and based on which actually the controller takes care of not only the input but also the predicted output of this one, and accordingly gives you the control. This is called one of the model-based control. But few other controls are there which are called the feed-forward control. If the disturbance is measurable, feed-forward control can eliminate the effect of disturbance there. So we have a disturbance. If we say, suppose this is your disturbance, if it is measurable, I can pass the information on a model-based control, and so now we know that this disturbance is going to affect the output in this manner. So we predict that one, and accordingly the controller changes this one. So basically one scheme is that it is a desired value, and this is the process output. You measure the disturbance like this, and then accordingly do the things here. A typical scheme for a MIM of multi-input, multi-output fermenter. Basically, we often require for making cakes or curd products and all the things there, we require this fermentation there. What are the things there? It's a fermentation process. If we look at it, what we have shown is that it's a 2 input and 2 output systems there. So what are the 2 inputs and 2 output systems? Where the manipulated variables are aeration rate and the coolant flow rate. So basically, how much air I push it there in this fermenter, and also the coolant, because the fermented temperature has to be maintained at a particular temperature, because often these reactions are exothermic, they generate some heat, that heat has to be taken out. So this is the coolant flow rate. So these are 2 manipulating variables, while the control variables are the dissolved oxygen concentration and the temperature of the fermenter. Of course, I am not an expert in this way. So what I gathered from these people, agriculture people, food processing people, that this dissolved oxygen in this process as well as the temperature, these 2 are 2 important what we do is that we have assumed that they are acting in some sort of decoupled manner. That means the aeration rate controls the dissolved oxygen, which is logical, and coolant flow rate controls the temperature of the output there. So what we do is the dissolved oxygen is measured, set point is there, this is a controller 1, and this is the motor, that is the actuator which controls the aeration rate. I will come to the disturbance there. Similarly, the temperature is measured, it's set compared with the set point temperature. This is another controller, PID controller, which gives the command on the valve. That means for to open or close the cooling valve, or what percentage it would be there, thereby varying the coolant flow rate. But you can easily see this is a feed forward are there. So there are two OI and TI are the two disturbances which are need to be measured and fed forward. The disturbance are inlet oxygen concentration and the inlet coolant temperature. So we are giving this aeration. So what is the inlet oxygen concentration of this one, and what is the coolant temperature? Because these two we need to measure, and we can have a feedback plus feed forward, which will give you a good quality product like this. So you can see it's a two input, is a good example of a two input, two output system with feed forward plus feedback type of schemes. And these two could be two separate PID controllers which can be controlled and tuned separately. So these are the things here. But here I am showing you this fermenter process in one way there. Though we have used two coolant, but it is two feed forward type of schemes there. Another scheme is called a cascade control of a fermenter. Here what we go is that only one point is that basically dissolved oxygen is our set point. I measured only the dissolved oxygen there. And the fermenter output is the measured dissolved oxygen. And basically there are two loops. This is one feedback loop, this is another feedback loop. What is the two PID controller? What is the inner PID controller? It goes to control the airflow process, and the airflow measurement is taking place to ensure that the proper airflow is going through the fermenter, which is properly dictated by this one. This one maintains that one. And if there is any disturbance occurring in this inner output, their airflow process on like this, that is compensated in the inner manner there, and fermenter will. So here the inner loop is the airflow control system, while the dissolved oxygen is controlled in the outer loop. So the same scheme can be controlled in several ways, either this two input two output system as well as a fermenter. So primarily whatever we are looking for this controller, you are right, either trying to replace the PID controller by a sophisticated control, or try to give a more better control other version like this. But these basic structures are always maintained in the process control. So the features are two controllers. The set point of the inner loop control is decided by the outer loop controller. The inner loop can take fast corrective actions, and etc. etc. I think we can go for it. Another type of thing is called ratio control. Often we require a desired ratio, say suppose a fuel air ratio. Say suppose we want to for complete combustion, if I give a particular flow of fuel is there, the air should also be in a particular proportion, it has to be put, so that there could be a complete combustion there. So that scheme is called a ratio control scheme. What we have a flow transmitter that is the fluid A, the maybe a fuel is going there, and we want to have a desired ratio between the fuel and air flow ratio there. So what we have is that this is the fluid B, I can say is the air. So I pass it, I measure the flow transmitter. So accordingly, it should have this much amount of flow, and I just try to measure what is the flow rate there. If it is not, the controller is there and tries to operate the control valve and control the flow rate of the air like this. So here the fluid A I have considered as fuel and this is an air, but there are many instances where two different fluids have to be mixed together and with a particular ratio, and this ratio control can also be used there. This is very much used in process control. Another one is more sophisticated, it's called the adaptive self-tuning control. So where you have a controller, we have a process, we have an input and output there. There we have the parameter estimation, and some parameter estimation algorithm is there, and where it estimates what are the process parameters. And if there is change in this one, it gives the information of the controller, and the controller parameters are also changed accordingly. So definitely it is more sophisticated, but the stability on all other things are more complicated for this one, and often we may incur instability if it is not designed properly. Apart from that, there is a very, I think you must have covered this one, the fuzzy controller. Many variables in food processing industries cannot be expressed in numbers. Rather, it is convenient to express them in qualitatively, that is good, moderate, bad, etc. So once you finally test it, how good is the product, good or bad? I just only put it in this way. For this type of processes, fuzzy logic controller are most appropriate for this one. So instead of this parametric type of EATR, fuzzy logic controller can also be used. Another thing is also important for this sort of one is called the sequential control. What is sequential control? Often we require to operate some things which are operated in sequences. I give one example. What is this? This is a tank there. So what we do is that, say suppose I have it and this the sequence may be that, okay, open this valve, first you fill up the tank, then heat this one, the liquid there, and heat and stir it continuously for 30 minutes. Say suppose some in that, if we heat it, some chemical reaction will take place, and suppose in 30 minutes it is there. Yeah. And then after those things are over, then the valve V2, you open it and then let it out. So what you can say is that these are the sequences which have to be operated in one by one. One is that open the valve, fill it up, close the valve, then put on the heater and the stirrer. You have and maintain it some temperature, say. We have a watch timer, maintain it for 30 minutes. And after 30 minutes, and during that, after 30 minutes, the heater and stirrer should be off. Then this V2 valve should be opened and it should be cleared. All the liquid should flow. So naturally, this is going in a sequence. I have given you a simple type of explanations of like this there. But important thing is that the features are the sequential and logical operation. What is logical operation? Because either the valve is fully open or fully closed. So the tank is fully open or fully closed. I am not bothered about intermittent values are like this there. So that is called, the logic is 1 or 0. Inputs and outputs are binary events, and absolute values are not important. So this sort of control, process control, is also important, where we require these controls and not continuously, step by step, stage by stage. We'll have to do it in sequentially. That is can be very nicely done by using programmable logic controller there. I don't have much time, so I think the PLCs, you have the block diagram I'm showing, and I think you may go through any book or any area this about the PLCs, and because the time is not here there, just can be used. And also nowadays the PLCs can have an inbuilt PID controllers also there, and a single PLC can simultaneously control different sequences of operation. So basically PLC is an integral part of any area. So there is another part is that, which after the production another things are there: automation and control, and food packaging and finishing. What is there? So what after packaging, what we require: filling, inspection, barcoding, weight checking. Say suppose we are packing some potato chips or like this. So these things can be carried out in a better way by using automation. First of all, we require leak testing. Packages are made of glass, paper. They may be rigid, semi-rigid. Flexible containers are more susceptible for leaks and the rigid ones. So leak detection is that the container is pressurized by predetermined amount of air and then held for a short period of time. Basically, you put a huge pressure and measure what is the pressure, rate of pressure. The pressure is whether pressure is maintained or not. If the pressure falls down, you can change it. Leak testing of a filled container, I am not going into detail. Similarly, weighing check, you can use load cell and etc. Similarly, the machine vision. Machine vision is used for ensuring that the package components such as caps, labels are in place. The automated system scans the level and whether correct level has been put. So this sort of machine visions can all be. All the things can be very nicely done effectively by a PLC there. And the PLC, as I have told, the plant level controller, we have also we'll come back to, we have come back to the what we had, different level of this one, level 0, 1, 2, 3 management and supervisory control there. So I am not going into the details of it. So before going to the scopes and challenges, the scopes I have given, but the challenges: automation and control of food processing industry. We have already instrumentation, sequential control, continuous control, plant level control, and data communications. We have touched upon. Definitely, it's a huge topic. I cannot cover on like this. But what is the future of industrial automation and control there? This is more important. Nowadays, we may come across on the term of Industry 4.0. That is given by industries. This name is given by industries in from Germany. They refer to now the recent era of automation as called Fourth Industrial Revolution. So what are the features? It is a autonomous motor vehicles, which was not earlier there. We have autonomous cars, drones, aircrafts. So they can also be used for manufacturing and quality control and all the things which were not there. Next is the 3D printing. So 3D printing, we can have a very precise and sophisticated manufacturing technology. We can have it. So much sophisticated than the normal machine tools and etc. We have advanced robotics. We can do all the things. And obviously, for sensing and instrumentations and all the things, we have newer materials there, like graphene, MEMS-based sensors and actuators, all the. So the sophistications have gone up. And obviously, the wireless communications, Internet of Things, basically, you must have, this is a very popular term on like this. We can have a small gadgets or like this there, and that is the which are connected through internet and all the things there, and integration. And obviously, these are futures. Obviously, we are including data analytics, flexible manufacturing, cyber physical systems. All are related to this automation and control. So control does not simply refer to simply our mathematical based control or like this, but basically if we look at it, the control is the overall perspective. And definitely the challenges have also increased. The controllers, the challenges to control engineers have also increased a lot with the advent of newer technologies and like this, because nowadays internet is playing a big role, IoTs are doing a big role in it, and so we are doing it, all of them are connected through wireless communications and all the things there. But there remains the challenges. What are the challenges? That is, first of all, often we require we use a distributed network control, a distributed system which is networked, and their coordination, that means several controllers are there at different places are like this, but their coordinations, because there is some time delay there, is a very important thing. And also this coordination of distributed network control is a very important thing here, and which we often call it a multi-agent. So distributed power systems, distributed refineries, and many other things there. This is a distributed control, network control is there. Apart from that, which is more concerned, is that security against the cyber attacks there. As in our computer and like this, we often face some problem of virus and like this there. This industrial control systems, they also employ several computers and they are networked. So they are also vulnerable to this virus attacks and malwares. So this is very important, and they can destroy these control systems. They can really make this control system ineffective and may damage many things there. The major problem with this industrial control is that for our computer systems or for our computer or like this there, we often do is that we often have some sort of virus checking or like this there. We run some programs or like this software through which we check the virus and deactivate it. But that cannot be done in industrial control, because the major issue is that it has to be run online throughout the day and years like this there. So we cannot simply isolate this system, put it on offline mode and check the virus. And that happens is that what we call it a malware that may often attack your systems, and that happened many a times there. They attack your system and make your system vulnerable and lot of damages and like this. I just give you few examples of few history of malware attacks in process industries. One cyber attack in German steel mill, they have not disclosed where it is. The attacker caused the multiple failures of individual control systems. So it was a steel mill, all the control loops were failure, eventually preventing a blast furnace from being able to shut down in a controlled manner which resulted in massive damage to the plant. So you can imagine this one. Another one in 2010, there was a malware named Stuxnet, was among the most sophisticated malware known at that time. It infected control system networks and was believed to by some to have damaged as many as 1/5 of nuclear centrifuges in Iran. So you can see we have got several nuclear power plants and etc. If it damages our control system, what accident, what level of accident it can have. Another example is, you can go through any books or literature that is very important and like this. Night Dragon in 2011 used tools such to steal valuable information to take control of an HMI. If you recall, that is a human-machine interface, which could then have provided the attackers with remote control of critical energy systems. That means the supervisory control. It just takes the control of this one there and does all the things there, puts all the maloperations there and it will destroy the whole plant and whole controller. So nowadays, a new challenge to industrial control systems, I must say, is to make a robust system such that this control loops and control systems, they can detect the malware, they can find out if there is any malware attack like this there, and so that in case of this sort of things, they can immediately take corrective action. And the second challenge is definitely to make such a system robust so that this malware cannot penetrate your system there and they cannot make it damage the thing there. So it is another aspects of this control systems now, and this is a big challenge to our industrial control system community or like this. I think I have covered, though time is, I think I have only 5-6 minutes left. I just leave it for my discussions and questions there, because I could have continued for more time, but I think is not there. But definitely you can, these are the another aspects possibly I tried to touch upon, and this will be possibly be there. So with this, I thank you for your patient listening, and I 5 minutes time is there. I request you to ask questions, whatever you feel, and there. But what I wanted to say is that just try to, these are not difficult. You may go through any papers and any books and like this. You may find very interesting, new area of work there. Okay, thank you very much. I hand it over to Dr. Chiranjeevi.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
Sir. Any queries, participants?
No query.
I think, sir, they have understood very well, sir. No query, sir.
It could be other way also.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. But what I wanted is that think of it, and just possibly I could at the end of your, tomorrow is your end of it.
Yes, sir. Yes,
of
sir.
yours, there.
Yes,
I could give a different flavor of this one, not in, which is not simply mathematical, but logical and engineering challenges also.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. In your busy schedule, you have accepted my invitation and given the lecture. Thank you, sir. Sir, in future also, please give this type of cooperation, sir. In future events also.
It's my pleasure. If I get any chance, I will try to.
Thank you, sir.
But I like to know the feedback afterwards also. And if you need any there, you may also contact me
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
by mail.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Bye. Should I conclude?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Log off.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, sir. Dear participants, tomorrow first session will take by Professor Sudarshan Kumar sir, Delhi Technological University. So advanced control strategies on benchmark IFSC systems. That is the topic. So please join 5 minutes before starting of this session. Thank you. Thank you very much.